Why you will never be free, and how to break the illusion. You think you're free. Free to choose, free to become, free to live the life you want. But what if I told you, you are not living your life? You're living a carefully constructed illusion, built not by tyrants or governments, but by the invisible architects of your own mind. This is not a conspiracy. This is psychology. You wake up in a world that taught you who to be before you even asked who you are. You scroll through feeds that train your brain what to want, what to fear, what to chase. You internalize roles, fears, expectations so deeply they feel like truth. But what if they're not? This isn't about waking up once. It's about learning how often you've been asleep, and how much power is waiting in that awareness. Freedom isn't found in rebellion. It's found in recognition. Not in tearing it all down, but in seeing clearly. Seeing what isn't yours. Seeing who you became to survive. Seeing what you've accepted as normal that's actually just tolerated pain. Because freedom doesn't begin with escape. It begins with honesty and the courage to face what's been hiding inside your own reflection. And most of all, it begins the moment you realize your cage was never made of steel. It was made of silence, shame, and stories. And you have the key. Freedom, real freedom, is rarely loud. It doesn't scream. It doesn't demand validation. It quietly sits in the corner of your soul and whispers, "Come home." And when you listen, really listen, it changes everything. Not all at once, but in small ways. In the choices you make. In the silence you no longer avoid. In the truths you finally speak. You don't wake up free. You choose freedom. One small rebellion at a time. The addiction to possibility. We've all done it. Told ourselves, I could be great if I really tried. If I had more time, if I wasn't so tired, if I just had the right opportunity, if life would just slow down for a second. But maybe that's the trap. Maybe staying in the realm of possibility is safer than risking reality. Because the moment you truly try, there's a chance you'll fail, and that's terrifying. So you procrastinate, you research, you start over, you stay almost committed. You wait for motivation that never comes. You make a to-do list and feel satisfied without doing anything. But deep down, you know, you're not afraid of failing. You're afraid of becoming someone with no more excuses. You're afraid of losing the fantasy. You're afraid of proving to yourself that effort still hurts. You're afraid of growth that doesn't fix the emptiness. Because once you see what you're capable of, you'll never be able to go back. You'll have to grieve all the years you weren't that person. You'll have to hold yourself accountable. You'll have to let go of the comfort of almost. You'll have to finally decide, do I want dreams or results? And that is terrifying and freeing. And here's the kicker. Most people will cheer you on until your actions challenge their excuses. When you stop hiding behind potential, you force others to confront their own delay. Your courage becomes a mirror. Possibility is safe, it's poetic, it's passive. But action? That's identity altering. You don't just change your outcomes, you change who you believe yourself to be. So the question becomes, do you want the fantasy of your future self, or the friction that builds her? The lie of one day. We've all done it. Told ourselves I could be great if I really tried. If I had more time. If I wasn't so tired. If I just had the right opportunity. If life would just slow down for a second. But maybe that's the trap. Maybe staying in the realm of possibility is safer than risking reality. Because the moment you truly try, there's a chance you'll fail. And that's terrifying. So you procrastinate, you research, You start over. You stay almost committed. You wait for motivation that never comes. You make a to-do list and feel satisfied without doing anything. But deep down, you know, you're not afraid of failing. You're afraid of becoming someone with no more excuses. You're afraid of losing the fantasy. You're afraid of proving to yourself that effort still hurts. You're afraid of growth that doesn't fix the emptiness. Because once you see what you're capable of, you'll never be able to go back. You'll have to grieve all the years you weren't that person. You'll have to hold yourself accountable. You'll have to let go of the comfort of almost. You'll have to finally decide, do I want dreams or results? And that is terrifying and freeing. And here's the kicker. Most people will cheer you on until your actions challenge their excuses. When you stop hiding behind potential, you force others to confront their own delay. Your courage becomes a mirror. Possibility is safe. It's poetic. It's passive. But action? That's identity altering. You don't just change your outcomes, you change who you believe yourself to be. So the question becomes, do you want the fantasy of your future self, or the friction that builds her? The identity trap. You don't become who you are, you remember. You peel away the layers, the expectations, the applause, the shame. You realize that much of what you call your personality is just your survival strategy with a clever name. You were called the calm one because expressing pain got you ignored. You were called the strong one because weakness brought punishment. You were called the funny one because being real made people uncomfortable. You were called the independent one because needing others left you disappointed. You were called the easy one because conflict never felt safe. But those roles, they're not you, they're responses, adaptive masks, armor. And the longer you wear them, the more they harden around your truth. They start as protection. They end as prison walls. The trap isn't that you have an identity. It's that you defend one that no longer fits. It's that you confuse consistency with authenticity. And it's that you forget you made it all up to be loved. You start to say, that's just who I am. I've always been like this. I could never do that. That's not in my nature. People like me don't change. And just like that, you build a cage out of your own certainty. Because the ego would rather be consistent than be free. Because identity loves boundaries, it fears becoming. Because change threatens the tribe, and the tribe is survival. But growth is betrayal. It betrays the stories that kept you safe. It disrupts the dynamics that gave you love. It threatens the systems where you knew the rules. It tears down the version of you that others depended on, to protect the one that was never allowed. So you hesitate. Because what if you grow beyond what they loved? What if you outgrow who you were before they chose you? What if becoming more you means becoming more alone? What if no one follows? But here's the truth. If the only version of you they can love is the one that's shrinking, then they were never loving you. They were loving your costume. They were loving their comfort. They were loving the mirror you held up, not your depth. Your real identity isn't something you prove. It's something you remember. Something you rebuild. Something you reclaim with every brave no, every honest yes, every unbecoming. And the more you return to that memory, the more you realize you were never too much. You were just surrounded by people who settled for less. So let it all fall away, the roles, the masks, the performance, the self you built to survive. There's nothing more magnetic than a person who finally comes home to themselves. Because home isn't a place, it's a decision. To choose truth over image, self over story, now over nostalgia. And when you do, you don't need to be liked because you finally become known by the only one who truly matters, you. The duality of truth. You can want to change and still love yourself. You can be healing and still hurting. You can set boundaries and still feel guilt. You can forgive someone and still need space. You can be grateful and still want more. We are taught to pick a side, to live in black or white. But the truth lives in the gray. You can miss someone and know they were toxic. You can be proud of your progress and still grieve what was lost. You can be grounded and still fear the future. You can feel peace and panic in the same hour. Truth isn't clean, it's messy, layered, it contradicts itself. And that's not confusion, that's reality. Growth is not a ladder, it's a spiral. You revisit old wounds with new wisdom. You fall back into patterns, less often, but still. And that doesn't mean you failed. It means you're still human. You can love the journey and still feel exhausted by the process. You can be expanding and still feel lost. You can be proud of how far you've come and still cry over who didn't make it with you. We've been taught that real healing is quiet, linear, that it's done when it looks good, but real healing is noisy, non-linear. It often looks like falling apart, because some versions of you must die before the new one can breathe. You are allowed to be a paradox. You are allowed to hold joy and sorrow in the same breath. You are allowed to not make sense to others and sometimes to yourself. You are allowed to evolve faster than people can understand. Let that be your liberation. Not everything needs resolution to be real. Not every feeling needs to be justified. Not every truth needs to be explained. Not every step needs applause. When you stop trying to sort your humanity into neat categories, you find grace. And grace is the softest form of revolution. Because when you can hold space for your own duality, you become safe for others to do the same. You stop judging. You start witnessing. You stop fixing. You start feeling. You stop hiding your mess and start making art from it. You stop controlling the process and start trusting the rhythm. That's freedom, not perfection, but presence. Let it be messy. Let it be unfinished. Let it be fully, gloriously yours. The courage to be misunderstood. Freedom is not found in being liked. It's found in being real. But real comes at a cost. And that cost is being misunderstood. You will be called dramatic when you express. You will be called distant when you protect your peace. You will be called selfish when you choose yourself. You will be called disloyal when you stop enabling. You will be called arrogant when you stop apologizing for existing. And in those moments, you'll feel the weight of every old story rise. I have to explain myself. If they don't get me, I must have done something wrong. Maybe I should have stayed quiet, because being misunderstood pokes the wound of abandonment. It reminds you of the times your truth cost you connection. It activates the instinct to perform, to smooth it over, to be palatable. But healing means letting that instinct die. It means being willing to disappoint someone else to be honest with yourself. It means choosing discomfort now over resentment later. The truth is, if you are not being misunderstood, you are probably not being honest enough, because real truth doesn't fit into neat narratives. Real truth rattles cages. Real truth makes people question their own. There will be moments when your clarity sounds like aggression, when your calm boundaries feel like cruelty to the ones who benefited from your silence, when your growth looks like betrayal to those committed to your old version. And that's okay. Their confusion is not your responsibility. Your job is not to be digestible. It is to be true. And the ones who can hold that truth without shrinking it, those are your people. The rest were just chapters. Necessary, beautiful, complete. You don't owe them your silence just because they knew your voice softer. You don't owe them the costume just because they applauded the performance. You owe yourself your wholeness. Even if no one claps, even if no one follows, even if your voice trembles, even if your heart breaks, because freedom isn't found in understanding, it's found in expression. So speak. Even if your voice is shaky, even if they don't get it, even if they walk away, because every time you choose to be misunderstood over being fake, you step closer to the only kind of peace that matters. The kind that doesn't ask you to trade your soul for safety. The pain of waking up. Waking up is not poetic. It's not soft sunlight and tidy breakthroughs. It's heavy, awkward, lonely, raw. It feels like grieving someone who's still alive, like outgrowing a home that once saved you, like being a stranger to the life you built. You realize the relationship you fought to keep was built on self-betrayal. You see that the job that paid your bills cost you your soul. You feel how much of your joy was performative. You become aware of every time you said yes while your chest screamed no, of every silence that felt like safety but was really surrender, of every role you played just to stay loved. And it breaks you, not in the dramatic way, but slowly, like a rope snapping thread by thread. You stop laughing at the jokes, you stop answering the texts, you stop pretending it's fine. And people notice. They ask what's wrong. You don't even know how to answer. Because it's not one thing, it's everything. You're not falling apart, you're falling into truth. And truth is inconvenient. It's uncomfortable. It's not something you can package for social media. It makes people uneasy, because when you stop lying to yourself, you start threatening the lies they still believe. But stay with it. The ache has purpose. The unraveling is sacred. The discomfort is your compass. It's how you know you're finally telling the truth. Waking up is crying in the car for no reason. It's canceling plans because small talk feels unbearable. It's rage cleaning your house and then lying on the floor in silence. It's mourning the version of you that was praised for being easy to love. It's questioning everything that once felt stable. It's having no answers and learning to rest there. It's chaos, but it's honest, and there's power in that. You're not broken, you're becoming. Let the pain teach you, let the ache shape you, let the silence speak. Because eventually, the noise will settle. And in that stillness, you'll meet someone new, you, unmasked, unapologetic, undone, and yet more whole than ever before. And that's when you know you didn't break, you broke free. The freedom to feel. You will not be free until you allow yourself to feel, truly feel, everything. Not just joy, not just gratitude, but the whole spectrum. The sadness that catches you mid-sentence. The anger you were told makes you ugly. The shame that sticks like static. The longing you try to hide with ambition. You were not born numb, you were taught to be numb. Taught that feelings are weakness, that crying is failure, that needing is clingy, that anger is dangerous, that desire is selfish. So you learn to shrink your emotions into something socially acceptable. You learn to translate heartbreak into humor. You learn to say, "I'm fine," when your soul was starving. You learn to intellectualize what needed to be felt. But your body kept score. The tension, the fatigue, the illness, the anxiety. Those are not random. They are reminders. They are messages from the parts of you still waiting to be witnessed. Because what you do not feel, you carry. And what you carry becomes your silence. And your silence becomes your prison. So let yourself break. Let yourself weep without apologizing. Let yourself scream into pillows. Dance barefoot. Write letters you never send. Let the energy move so it doesn't rot. You will not die from feeling deeply. You will die from never being known. Freedom isn't found in neutrality. It's found in aliveness, in laughing until you snort, in crying in public and not caring, in waking up and saying, "This is me today, and that's enough." You are not here to be pleasant. You are here to be true. Let your emotions be wild. Let them speak. Let them teach you. Because your feelings, they are not the problem. They are the path. And when you stop fearing them, you start hearing them. And when you start hearing them, you start healing. And that's what freedom sounds like. Not silence, but the sacred roar of everything you never said, finally being felt, finally being free. Closing the loop. This is not the end. It never is, because once you taste truth, you can't untaste it. You can try to forget, to regress, to return to the mask, but the fit will never feel the same. You'll laugh at jokes that no longer land. Stand in rooms that once thrilled you and feel hollow. Be surrounded by people and still feel alone. Because something inside of you shifted, and that shift cannot be undone. You are no longer willing to trade your peace for their approval. You are no longer interested in belonging if it costs your voice. You are no longer available for anything that disconnects you from yourself. And that's terrifying, at first. Because you are not just closing a chapter. You are burying entire versions of you. Versions that got you through. Versions that were loved. Versions that were rewarded. But closure is not the same as clarity. Sometimes closure means you don't get the apology. Sometimes it means you walk away while still wanting to stay. Sometimes it's not a door closing, but you turning your back on a door that was never open, and still you move. Because staying would mean abandoning yourself again, and you've promised never again. So you breathe, you cry, you write new rules, you say, "I will not betray myself to be understood. I will not shrink to be digestible. I will not confuse love with tolerance." You rewrite the definitions of love, of loyalty, of home, of enough. You realize healing doesn't mean the wound disappears. It means it no longer controls the script. You stop being reactive. You become responsive. You stop seeking intensity. You start seeking safety. You stop chasing wholeness. You start noticing where it already exists. This is not the end. This is the new beginning that only comes from facing your own fire and walking through it. So if it feels like you're starting over, that's not failure. That's freedom. You've closed the loop, not with perfection, but with presence, and presence will always lead you home. The real freedom. So here you are, not fixed, not perfect, not fully healed, but honest. And that's everything. Because the illusion of freedom says, you must be fearless. You must be whole. You must be ready. But real freedom whispers, you get to be afraid and still act. You get to be messy and still worthy. You get to begin, even if you're not ready. You stop waiting for a version of you that doesn't flinch, and you start walking with the one who does. You stop trying to control every outcome, and you start trusting your ability to respond to whatever comes. You stop performing your life, and you start living it. You speak, you rest, you forgive, you release. You say yes to what feels like home. You say no to what asks you to leave yourself behind, and that's when it clicks. Freedom isn't the absence of fear. It's the presence of self. You won't be free because you changed everything around you. You'll be free because you remembered who you were beneath it all. And once you remember, you never forget, you never unsee, you never go back. You become the kind of person the world cannot manipulate. because you are no longer available for anything that costs your peace. That is the revolution. That is the return. That is the real freedom, and it was never out there. It was always within you, waiting to be reclaimed.